Hello and welcome back to the series Masters of the Chessboard. In this series we're going through the games in the famous book by Richard Reti, Masters of the Chessboard, looking at each of the games one at a time and Reti's analysis of these games. This is the third and final game of Carl Schlechter, who was one of the potential contenders for the World Championship and drew Lasker in a World Championship match. And his opponent with the white pieces is Frantisek Schubert, or Frank Schubert if you want to go into more English. Now, this game started off with d4, d5, knight f3. Now this knight f3 move, it can lead to quite a few other systems. It's the first move if you're going to go into the London, or you can go into the Collie sort of system. There's quite a few different options, but you can also play c4 and go back into the Queen's Gambit. Now here, Schlechter plays c5, so playing a Queen's Gambit himself. Now Reti comments that despite it being White's move, taking the pawn perhaps isn't advisable because White's going to struggle to hold on to it, and he's trading a centre pawn for a flank pawn, and it's just going to give Black quite a nice centre at the end of it. However, he does mention that Black, going second, will very often struggle to... Well, Black's trying to equalise because Black has a second move. So it's very common that Black may not be able to get the space advantage, and Black may not be able to get an initiative. They may be able to get one of them, but not both. And so, because of that, Black should instead be content with either having less space or trying to make some freeing moves, such as c5, that are perhaps premature. Now, Reti comments that Tarrasch preferred to have more space, for his pieces to be a bit more free. He preferred to try and play moves like c5 to free up his position as quickly as possible, and accept that there would be weak squares and weak points in his position. However, well, actually, an example of that is this opening. If we play it a bit more normally, this is the pseudo Tarrasch defense, and the idea is you play c5 as quickly as possible to try and free up your position, and you'll accept some weaknesses, but you will have a lot more space. However, Reti comments that it's generally considered today that positions where you have less space or you're more restricted can be defended very easily. Well, perhaps not very easily, but they can be more easily defended than positions where there are a lot of weak points. So c5 moves like this are perhaps not that good, and they're not played very often today. Now here White plays c4, and now we have e6 going into a normal Queen's Gambit decline Tarrasch defense. Reti comments that c takes d4, knight f6, and Black would have perhaps avoided an IQP position, IQP being isolated queen pawn position. However, the game would be very open, and an open game would nearly always benefit White because White's the one who has got the move. It's worth noting in this position, Black would play knight f6 to attack the pawn rather than just taking it straight away, because knight c3 would come. If take takes, so the pawn's pinned, and the queen would have to move back, and he could take with the queen, he could take with the knight, but you're going to have quite a nice development, a very nice advantage with the queen. Sorry, a very nice advantage in terms of development. So that's one option in terms of taking the pawns or going into a more open game, but when you are a move down, which is known to be better for White. The other option, which Carl Schlechter plays is e6, going into a Queen's Gambit decline Tarrasch. And now we have c takes d. Oh, sorry. We have c takes d5 now, and e takes d5, knight c3, and knight f6. And now we can see that white is ready to take this pawn. Whenever they need to, they can take this pawn. And what that means is that after this exchange, black will be left with a isolated queen pawn. This d pawn is isolated and it's a queen pawn. Now, because of that, from this position onwards, Reti just discusses the position as if it's already an IQP position. Now he says that in general, a centre pawn on the 4th rank, or the 5th rank if you're the 5th rank if you're black, or the 4th rank if you're white. In general, a pawn there is a bit of an advantage because it's a centre pawn, so it allows more control of the board, more control of some of the important squares, like you have e4 and c4 as potential outposts in this position. However, and actually he does contrast this with perhaps e4, e5 positions where let's go into something like a Tarrasch defense. We've seen this sort of, a field wall defense. We've seen this sort of thing before, where you have an e4 pawn to d6 pawn, and here white has the advantage because they've got quite a bit more space, and this pawn controls essential points, whereas this pawn doesn't really control as much. So that's one of the benefits that Reti gives in terms of a central pawn to a pawn that's perhaps on the 6th rank or the 3rd rank. However, he says that if a pawn is on its own, so after c takes d4, this pawn will be isolated, then it can be a bit weak to attack in that black is almost always going to have a piece defending this pawn. However, the main issue is this square here, the d4 square in front of the pawn, can never be defended. So there is no pawn on c5 or on e5 to defend this square. So this square is always going to be weak. And because of that, the emphasis on isolated queen pawn positions is to control this square in front of the pawn. However, that said, the isolated queen pawn can be an advantage because it can participate in the attack. A pawn push at the right moment can be devastating. However, he says that you shouldn't really play for isolated queen pawn at the cost of a tempo, which is what black did here. So in this instance, because black will end up a tempo down in an isolated queen pawn position, it's not very useful. It's more of a disadvantage. Now here we see g3, and Reti comments that this fianchetting of the bishop is thought to be the refutation for it's thought to refute the Tarrasch defense. Now here we have knight c6, bishop to g2, bishop to e6, castles, bishop e7, all normal moves, and now bishop to g5. And Reti comments that the bishop here isn't very well placed. It looks like quite a natural move. However, after h6, the bishop is sort of stuck. It has to decide right now whether white would have to decide whether they want to take this knight and give up the bishop pair, or if they want to go back to e6, or probably e6 or maybe f4, or even d2, because if it goes back to h4, it will just be trapped. So he says that because of this g3 pawn, this bishop g5 move perhaps isn't a very good move currently. Now here we don't see h6 straight away, we see castles, d takes c5, bishop takes c5, rook to c1, now bishop back to e7, stopping this pin. It's worth noting that white did wait until the bishop had been developed before they took on c5. And they've essentially cost black 2 tempos. But now we see knight to d4, and now h6. So knight d4 unleashes the bishop, and it puts a knight on a square in front of the isolated queen pawn, which is what you want to do in an isolated queen pawn position. You want a knight on a weak square in front of it. But with this h6 move, black is putting the question to the bishop. White can exchange the bishop and give up the bishop pair in a fairly open position that's going to benefit black, or they can retreat it back to e3, which is what white played, but this is a bit of a waste of time because why didn't white just play bishop e3 to start off with? Black's just got in the h6 move for free. And now we see knight to g4. And this looks like it's a bit of a blunder because white, at the end of all the exchanges and things, can win potentially 2 pawns. However, the combination is a lot more thought out than what it initially looks like. So in the game, we saw knight takes e6, f takes e6, the bishop was defending the knight, and now bishop to h3, knight takes e3, bishop takes e6 check, king h8, so white's got a pawn so far after they take here, f takes e3, and now bishop to g5, attacking the e3 pawn. And white can't defend the e3 pawn with queen d3, since black would win with a move like rook to e8. So queen d3 and rook e8 attacks the bishop and also attacks this pawn. If white, say, takes this pawn here, you'd have bishop takes e3 check, forking the king and the rook. So instead of that, we see white taking another pawn here, and now white's 2 pawns up. However, after queen d6, attacking the bishop, bishop h3 retreating, also defending the rook, we see rook takes f1 check, king takes f1, and now rook to d8. And this pin here was the main aim of Schlechter's combination. He saw that the knight may be taking the pawn at the end of the exchanges on d5, and he wanted to be able to pin the knight to the queen. So here we see bishop to g2, defending the knight, knight to e7 attacking, and h4, trying to push this bishop away. If it was something like knight to c3, then after queen to f6 check, the white would just lose a queen. Let's say the king moves, rook takes d1, and white's just lost a queen for a rook. So instead, white plays h4, but then we see knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, and note again, queen takes d5, rook f8 check. After king g1, there would be potential fork here, but also queen takes g3 is a potential threat, because if this isn't actually hanging the bishop really, because if they take here, queen takes e3 check would win the rook. And now black is up the exchange. So in this position we saw knight takes and bishop takes d5, because queen takes d5 loses. So we see bishop takes d5, and now we see bishop takes e3, attacking the rook, rook to c3, And now the final finishing move, queen takes g3. So we're threatening mate here, and we're threatening mate here. This bishop is pinned to the queen, and there's nothing there's nothing white can really do to defend it. They could take the bishop to defend it, but then queen takes e3, and we are up in exchange. And, after something like queen to b3, queen f4 check, maybe you could try and win some extra pawns and things, and this is an easily won endgame now. So there we have it. That was game number 33, the final one by Carl Schlechter. And just like some of the previous games of the Masters, the final one is a combination. It ends in like a nice little tactical sequence, starting with this knight to g4 move, ending with this rook to d8 move. So ending on move 20 and starting on move 12. So quite an impressive combination. He obviously saw the idea of this this pawn being captured, and the fact that he could pin a piece at the end of combinations, and he just built upon that in his mind. At least that's how I assume he would have calculated it. So we have it. That was the end. That's the final game of Carl Schlechter. I believe the next person in the book is Henry Nelson Pillsbury, who we've seen a couple of his games of. He lost in all of his games we've seen so far. But yeah, I think after this we're getting into what Reti classes as the modern masters of chess, such as Capablanca, Bogolubov, even some Alekhine and things. But yeah, so that's game number 33. And if you like this video, please like, comment and subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.